Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. The peace greeting might not have been appropriate, but I'm not really addressing the ones against whom I'm hostile right now. I don't expect them to listen. But you in the normal audience are the ones on whose behalf I'm going to say something that is hostile. So to you, yes, either you're Muslim, Assalamu alaikum, or you're not, and peace to you. 3 points, main points, and some sub-points underneath them that I want to make about this class conflict that Attorney Spurling promotes and I find myself supporting as well. I'm going to start by saying that I'm aware that I'm SYSBM, by extension IBMOR, and I don't have to talk about save the community or anything having to do with it. I'm doing this voluntarily. But I do have an understanding as to why somebody else might say so. See, my son will soon be 21. May Allah preserve and protect him and keep him guided. But unfortunately, he has to live for a while in the community. As a matter of fact, the city is pretty much the community, for the good and the bad that it's worth. By the same token, even though he understands SYSBM, even if he doesn't know the name of it, what I do want to point out regarding my son is that he still has to live in the States, and he has to live for a while in the community. And he's not the only one. Matter of fact, the time he has to spend there may be less than it is for many others. So I understand that there's a length of time it's going to take for a lot of brothers to get out. And you know what? That's not their fault. And a lot of these men, even if they think that they are Pookies and Ray Rays, they're not actually IDNS, and therefore they shouldn't have to deal with this stuff. And that's another thing I'm going to point out. See, when I'm talking about this class conflict, I am not talking about a financial class. I'm talking about behavioral classes. Much like Attorney Spurling has previously specified, he's talking about behavioral classes, and therefore they do have to go because of their behaviors, not because of the average income of the zip codes in which they grew up. So a lot of guys who call themselves Pookie and Ray Ray think that we're talking about them, when in fact, I'm going to tell you that who I'm talking about is best described as IDNS, IDNS, intentionally dysfunctional negative stereotypes. You may call yourself a Pookie and a Ray Ray because you came up in the hood, but they're dangerous to you, they're dangerous to me, they're dangerous to my son, to my daughters, to your sons, to your daughters, to our parents. And that's the difference. It's unreasonable that we would want to eliminate a financial class of people. But a behavioral class of people, no matter what the average income is of their home zip codes, absolutely we take them out. And that leads me to the next point. I'm sick and tired of IDNS and non-IDNS alike using Malcolm X as an excuse. Malcolm shaped up before he got deep into it enough to where he deserved to die, or we never knew about it. So either he shaped up before he deserved to die, or he shaped up before we would have found out why he deserved to die. Without the threat of the death penalty hanging over his head, he shaped up. When he shaped up, he did it to a level, to a standard, to a degree many of us would all outright and always refuse to do. He took on a different approach to knowledge and education. And so even if you weren't going to schools and racking up debt to get these degrees and PhDs, he still took a good attitude towards education to the point he educated himself. He came out sounding different. He could read, he could write, he could spell correctly in his native language, his first language. He admitted this was not our original language, true, but it was the one that he grew up with. It's the one with which he grew, and therefore he taught himself to know it correctly at various levels. Many of us would look and say, I don't need no books, I got my heart, I'm reformed now. Bruh, you need the heart and you need the mind. You develop both. No one had to tell this to Malcolm, he knew to do it already. Hats off to him. Many of us nowadays, when we do go in, many who are IDNS when they go into some sort of trouble, come out as prison preachers, cell block clergy, D block deacons, And it's not wrong that they've changed. The issue is that when they have changed, they still have some of that anti-intellectualism to them. No, that's not going to work. And this is so ingrained that when they do come out and they're preaching and they hit the lecture circuit, the audiences that listen to them, the teens that listen to them, will let them talk because they used to be idiots. But if you want to talk about how to get it right the first time, like Attorney Spurling, they don't want to hear it. If you think Attorney Spurling is rough, you haven't paid attention to what I've called for. I'm not inciting anything illegal and I'm not threatening anyone. I think the law should execute the idiots, regardless of their origin, black or anything else. I think the law should execute them. It should execute those who glorify it. And the women who cry, mourning the deaths of the idiots, should also be executed behind them. Announce it. See who cries about it. If one of them stands up and says, they're killing all the alphas, start with her. You see, that hybristophilia is too ingrained. It's got to go. And if it means death, it means death. Right now, there are a bunch of people that can hear this message and they change their minds and they turn around and do a 180 with nobody standing over them, with no system like this in place. If the system like that was in place next week, but they changed today, I would not call for that to be implemented against them because they stopped beforehand. But once it does come into play, then that's too late to say, I'm reformed, I'm changed. Shuck that fit. If it took an axe over your neck, then the axe needs to drop. Same would go for me. Next thing I want to say, I've already explained who I'm talking about as needing to go and who I'm not. I've already explained why it is I would mention this as an SYSBM man, and I want to make it plain that I am not, that this prize, the prize of this conflict, is not the hybristophiliac hyena B word that loves the idness. She's not the prize. She's part of the class that needs to be annihilated. That's the next point I want to make. This ain't about her. It's about eliminating her too, actually. And the reason for that has to do with the reason that is for this. She's not the reason for this. Saving her or getting at her is not the reason for this. She's got to go because she's the mechanism by which more idness will always be raised, whether dad was an idness or not. She's that mechanism that's always going to turn out more idness factories that are going to turn around and go after all of the NS, non-stereotypical men and women and children. Last thing I'm gonna tell you is that my reason that I am for all of this is because of your safety and your fair treatment. That's it. It's the same reason I told the Golden Sphere that I was going to speak about their issues and that I was with them for the purposes of safety and fair treatment. It was not about obsessing over how someone looks. It wasn't about that. When it degenerated into that and I realized I couldn't stop these beefs, there was nothing I could say to benefit them. I fucked the shuck up. Nothing I can do to help them. Nothing I can say to help them. And nobody that's been in a grudge has asked me, no two that have been involved in any grudge have asked me to mediate. It would take both to do it. If they don't, I can't help. Nothing I can do. But I'm telling you the same thing. Those of you in the manosphere, those of you in SYSBM, those of you that are black and red pill aware, I want you to understand that the reason I promote this behavioral class, not even conflict, but massacre, really, executions, is because of your safety and fair treatment. When they're alive and they're thriving and they're validated and they're being continued on ideologically and genetically, mostly ideologically, you are not safe and you will not be treated fairly. And right now, the problem is that the community, that's not, most of which is not idness, still justifies and legitimizes them too further muck and much. Well, you know, people change. How about they change now? How about they change yesterday? How about they change before this system gets put into place, in which they get eliminated once they're proven to be IDNS? Once they're proven to have crimes with victims, especially if they're proud of it, then they gotta die. How about they change before that point? And I'd make it retroactive. Oh, no. We're not going to say that after the day that this comes into effect, you better not do this again. No, shuck that fit. If it can be proven that you did this before, death. If there are enough witnesses that this was how you rolled and this is how you behaved, death. And it will be announced that anyone caught crying behind you, any ladies caught crying behind you, death. We got to remove that element. I don't mean an element that defends itself. That's not it. But we got to remove this element that glorifies negative stereotypes. It's got to be removed. Enemies are going to have these negative stereotypes, and they're wrong. But you know what? It's not our job to make these stereotypes truth. It's not our job to accept, let alone believe these stereotypes, let alone bring them to life. That is not our job. That's the opposite. That's why I call for this. That's why I say this. And these are the points I wanted to make. Thank you for listening. As always, black heart, black mind, black out. Assalamu alaikum. And black heterosexual NS, both non-select and non-stereotypical male power, because they don't like it. And black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day.